Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then my name is Holly. I am a mummy to Arthur, who is a year old. So today's video is going to be a video on anxiety and different types of coping mechanisms and strategies that you can use to help calm your anxiety and cope with day-to-day life, and generally, hopefully, let that anxiety pass. So if you want to hear some of my top tips and some strategies that you could use in your everyday life to help you, then carry on watching. Oh, get comfortable. Can't get comfy. Right, I'm comfy. So anxiety has been a massive part of my life for quite a long time. A massive part that I obviously didn't want it to be a massive part of my life, but it has been, and I think it actually has been quite important because it's brought me to the place that I am today. If you want to hear my anxiety or depression story, or just generally my journey into a more positive mindset, then I will leave the link to that video below in the little description box. So I wanted to do a series of videos to help anyone else out there who has been suffering with anxiety or suffers with depression, or generally has more negative thoughts than they do positive thoughts. So I wanted to share not only my story but also ways and to help that. So if you have already watched the video below, I won't go into it too much, but I basically have done quite a few things over the past 3 to 4 years to help me with my anxiety. I actually haven't ever taken antidepressants medication for my anxiety, and I didn't when I was depressed either. However, that's not to say that it is not the safe option for you to do. I do think that if you are having serious depressed thoughts of hurting or harming yourself or potentially committing suicide, then please make sure that you call the Samaritans. You go and see your doctor, your GP, and if they feel that it's the safest option for you to take some medication to manage those thoughts, then please follow your GP's instructions. However, these are alternative ways, and also ways that you can use alongside medication to help you conquer those thoughts and become a more positive person. So the first one for me is counselling. This for me was something that I did quite later on in the stage of me suffering with anxiety and depression. It was actually something that happened. I had a trigger which happened in August 2018, which made me decide that I needed to go and talk about a specific subject. Although it all reels off into everything else, it was a specific subject that I needed to tackle, and I thought that the best way to tackle that was counselling. So I knew in my head already what was creating negative thoughts or what was triggering me on a day-to-day basis, and I felt like I needed to tackle that. So that's where I used counselling. You can get counselling on the NHS if you go and see your GP. There are some many great counsellors who work for the NHS, and it's fantastic. However, because mental health hasn't got the funding that physical health has, it is quite a long wait. So you can wait up to 2 months to 3 months to get actually to see a first initial consultation, and sometimes you can't see your counsellor every week. You may have to wait every 2 weeks or once a month, and for me that wasn't good enough. I wanted to see somebody then and there. I wanted to tackle it as soon as I could, and I wanted to see them every week. So I actually seeked out a counsellor, and I was very lucky, and the counselling sessions only cost me £25 each session, and I did it for 3 months, and I did it every week for 3 months. It is a talking therapy. They are not advising. You can get some counsellors who are different, but for me this counsellor was exactly what I needed. I wanted to sit there and I wanted to talk to her about how I felt, and I wanted to know that I was dealing with it. I didn't want her to tell me how to deal with it. I wanted to deal with it on my own. I wanted to come up with the conclusions on my own. because then I knew that I was being true to myself and I was making that decision. For me, her just sitting there and talking to me and letting me talk to her and being very, very understanding and making me feel so very normal for having these thoughts, for making me feel normal that I was getting upset about different situations, really understanding for the very first time how it felt about a scenario. I don't want to say too much, however, it has come from my childhood. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, I would 100% seek out a counsellor. I literally just went online and looked. I asked a few people, and in fact it was my mum who knew a counsellor who then was training somebody else and I went with the somebody else basically. So it was in fact my mum, but I took that first step to say to my mum, I want to go to a counsellor. So it actually took me to say that to somebody else. So talking and just doing the act of saying, I need help, this is the kind of help that I would like, can you help me find it? And if you do that, more often than not, people are so willing to help you. And if you don't have any family members, please message me. I've got my Instagram below, so if you're not happy leaving a comment below because people will see it, please Instagram private message me, and I'll be more than happy to pass along details of anyone or anything that might be helpful to you in regards to counselling. So my second therapy method is CBT, which stands for Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. So I had CBT when I was pregnant with Arthur. I think I must have been around, I had a bump, so I must have been around the 20-25 week mark or something like that. And I basically was having some real anxieties about what was to come. I wasn't afraid of being a mum whatsoever. I knew that that would flow for me. I was confident in being a mum. What made me feel anxious at that time was my relationships with my friends, my relationship with my mum, and yeah, so all of those things together made me feel anxious, and that is what I was worrying about. Also for the fact that we weren't in the house that we're in today. We were actually in another house which was too small for a family of 3. So I hate moving. That was making me anxious as well. And I found at the time that it was all getting too much. I had a baby inside me, hormones are rushing around, and I suddenly lost all those things that I had learned over the years, and I felt like I couldn't deal with it. So I went to my GP. She referred me onto Mind, I think it is, or one of those websites, and you can do a self-referral. So I will leave that link below as well, the place where you can make a self-referral. You don't need your GP to do so, and you can actually organise a 4 to 6 week session of counselling. I actually chose to do it online, like on the phone, and there were half-an-hour sessions, which for me wasn't long enough. CBT stands for Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and basically they just give you tools on how to deal with anxiety in situations. So say if you were out with your friends and suddenly you became very panicked and you either had a panic attack or you wanted to suppress that feeling of panic, and you wanted to try and control those anxious feelings, they would give you certain things to do to help with that scenario. So for instance, you could do, they suggest, for me, I was worrying about lots and lots of things. So I was finding it hard to sleep, I was finding it hard to concentrate at work, and I was become very overwhelmed. So they told me to write a worry diary, which meant that throughout the day I would write in my phone things that were on my mind that were worrying me. I would just pick up my phone, write it down, and then I would try and leave it and say I'll come back to that later. And then when you've got a spare half an hour, you then revisit it in calm, in your place where you feel safe, a place where you can feel calm and relaxed and there's not a lot of distractions, and you look at those worries and you try and think to yourself, well, have I thought about that since? Is that something that I can deal with? Is that something that I can't deal with and I just need to try and let go? So that was one of the tools that they gave me, as well as other tools like taking deep breaths, going to the toilet, escaping for 5 minutes, taking some deep breaths in and out, and trying to relax your mind. So that kind of brings me on to my third therapy method, which is called hypnotherapy. So this was actually the first thing that I did when I realised that I was having panic attacks and that possibly I was feeling very anxious. So I did some hypnotherapy. Again, I was very kind enough put into the right direction by my sister, and she sought the person who did my hypnotherapy out for me. And again, it wasn't expensive. I think I paid £10 per session, which is very, very cheap. And the sessions were an hour, so I was very, very lucky. Hypnotherapy is not a Darren Brown, make you do silly things type hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is a deep relaxation. And for somebody who has an incredibly anxious mind and so many things going on, things like meditation can be very hard to conquer and to do initially. So I found that hypnotherapy is somebody else kind of doing it for you. All I can explain it is that I went to see this man, and he was very kind. He let me talk to him about my worries, about how I felt, about how I wanted to feel, and what I wanted to achieve out of each session. So I'd sit in a chair. It was a very nice place. I could hear the birds. It was very quiet. There was no like passive noise, like road or anything like that. It was very quiet and very serene. And he would basically sit me in the chair, make me feel comfortable, and he'd tell me to take some deep breaths in and out. And he had such a very calming voice, almost like David Attenborough. And he would then count down from 5 or 3, I think. And when he got to the last number, you would then feel calm. And then we chose a place where you felt safe. So it's called your safe place. And if I couldn't think of one, then he would use his one, which is a park. So you open the gate, you walk through, you sit on the bench, you take in your surroundings. So this is very, very similar to meditation. However, if you struggle with meditation, if you've tried it and you feel like you're struggling with it because you're just too high on that anxiety level, then I'd highly recommend seeking out somebody who does hypnotherapy for anxiety and anything else. I don't actually know what he would do because I was in a state of semi-consciousness. So basically, has anybody ever been so deep in a sleep and then somebody wakes you up and you kind of feel like they're there but you're not quite sure? It feels like that. It feels like that very moment that you start to wake up from a very, very deep sleep and you're just sitting in that place. So you're not quite asleep, but you're not quite yet awake. It's very, very hard to explain unless you've ever had it. But that is basically where he took me, and it was so, so relaxing. And he would then talk to me about all my worries, how we need to set them aside. And how you need to think about the positives of them. So he was changing my mindset for me. And actually, recently I've thought about going back and seeing him for some more hypnotherapy because I think it's very, very powerful and very, very good. But of course, you have to feel safe with that person, and I did. I felt very safe with him. That leads me on to my fourth therapy, which is meditation. So I actually mindfulness. It's called Mindfulness. Now there's so much on mindfulness now, but at the time I didn't know a lot about it, apart from my mum doing yoga and doing it within that. She didn't necessarily speak to me about mindfulness. She just spoke to me about being present in the moment, which I couldn't really understand at the time. So I read this book and I did the exercises within the book, and I started to do it. I started to take 3 to 5 minutes of my day. It was at the time before I went into work. I was sitting in my car, I'd close my eyes and I'd take some deep breaths. Now, this isn't necessarily, mindfulness is not to empty your mind and to stop the thoughts from going around, but it's basically the best way that I've seen it be described is that you're sitting on the side of a road and you're sitting at a bus stop, and all the cars going past are thoughts, and your job in mindfulness and in meditation is to keep sitting still on that bus stop and not jump into a car, because as soon as you jump into a car, you're taking action on a thought, and that thought is then going to drive away and it's going to maybe spiral down the road, which you don't want it to. So basically you're sitting on the side of the road and you're just seeing the thoughts pass. So you're just letting one thought go in and then let it go out again. So you may have thoughts and you may go off with it, but it's about bringing yourself back to that present moment and taking those deep breaths and thinking through each time, just breathing and concentrating on your breath, listening to your breath. So they are the therapy methods that I've taken to conquer my anxiety over the years. And as I say, different therapies have helped me at different points in my journey, and I think that's very, very important, that you need to seek the right one for you at that right time, and you will know. I think you just need to trust yourself, and if you don't know, go for one, try it. If it doesn't help, don't feel defeated. Don't say to yourself, right, I tried counselling, it doesn't work, so nothing's going to work. Try something else, and maybe later on counselling will help you, or maybe it's just not for you. Or maybe you need to see a different counsellor. Many different counsellors have many different methods, and the same again with CBT. I think there are some people who do CBT very differently to others, and now I do have days when I just feel a bit crap, I feel self-conscious, I don't feel very positive, I feel like the world's against me. Those days are very far and few between, so that is, I feel very proud of myself sitting now doing this video and thinking to myself, actually, I am a really positive person and I've come a long way, because I used to have negative thoughts every single day, and I used to be in such a very, very bad place where I just thought that my life would never be good. But I sit here now with a smile on my face, knowing that my life is amazing, and it's amazing because I think it is. It's not amazing because I have riches and wealth and things like that, but I have a roof over my head, I have a beautiful son, I have family who are so supportive, and friends who are funny and kind and love me, and yeah, I really feel that love, and I think that finally I'm letting that into my life, because before it was all there but I just wasn't letting it in. And all these different therapies have really helped me do that. So one thing that I'm going to leave this video on for now is one thing that my counsellor told me that has stuck with me, which is I can't get rid of the darkness that is within the world and within my life. However, I can open the door to let more light in, and the more light that's in your life, the less darkness you will see. And I think that's really important. The video, however, I think mental health is such a very, very important topic to discuss, something that's very true to my heart and close to me, and I wanted to share all the different types of therapy that you could choose or have, or like me, you could do them all. And I've done them all. So I feel like I've got a good knowledge of what they're like. I'm going to leave lots of links below that are going to be helpful to you. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up. Please share this video if you feel like somebody in your life needs this type of help, because it is so important. So thank you very much. Love you and leave you. Mwah.